So, welcome to another episode of Hacha Zim Zam. Today I wanted to talk about video game movies, video game narratives. I think part of the reason that it's been hard to find any really good movies based on video games is because the kind of narratives you have for a movie are very different from the kind of narratives you have in a video game. So, what I mean is something that Will Wright talked about in this really cool talk back in 2007. He was talking about the difference between video game narratives and movie narratives. And movie narratives are very linear. You go from point A to point B to point C. Video game narrative, on the other hand, you start out and you go to point A and maybe point B, and then maybe you go to point L, and then you die and you go back to point A, and you go now to point Z, and then the Q, and then you save the game, and then you die and you go to Q again. It's, you map out an entire game space as opposed to this linear journey. So movies are very bad at kind of expressing that, although he did say that he thought that the movie Groundhog Day did a really good job of kind of showing what that game narrative is like, right? Because he wakes up in Punxsutawney and keeps coming back to that same point every day, and every day as he goes through Punxsutawney, he makes different decisions. And as a result, he ends up mapping out and going different places, going through that whole game space. And I've been kind of interested in kind of the evolution of the video game movie, not movies based on video games, but movies that kind of repeat that kind of game narrative. So a movie like Source Code, for example, is a really good example because the hero goes through that same space lots and lots of times, learning things as he goes. Or Run, Lola Run kind of does that same thing, where she gets to make that journey a few different times and kind of learn from her mistakes. Do things a little differently. And then the most recent and excellent version, I think, is Edge of Tomorrow, which is kind of the ultimate video game movie, even though it's not actually based on a video game. It very much feels like it, right down to the notion of sort of players playing together and mapping out strategies together. Like, you didn't really get that with these other movies. So, anyway, I'm kind of interested in what examples y'all can think of video game movies, whether they're based on actual video games or not, and movies that kind of reflect that kind of game narrative, and where you think all of this is going. Do we have a new subgenre to deal with here? Looking forward to seeing your responses, and I'll see you next time.